The night was dark and the storm was cruel. Snow fell from the sky like endless knives, cutting the skin and freezing the breath of anyone who dared to walk outside. On this alien world, the land was not soft with white snow but hard with blue ice, sharp and deadly. The wind screamed through broken mountains, carrying with it a warning. No life should walk here. But someone did. A small alien girl, no older than 8 years, stumbled through the storm. Her skin glowed faintly under the moonlight, her large eyes shining with fear. Her clothes were torn and her tiny body shook from the cold. She held her arms close to her chest, trying to keep warm, but it was useless. The storm was too strong. The night was too long. Every step she took could be her last. She cried, but the wind stole her voice. Her legs sank in the deep snow and her tears turned into ice on her cheeks. She was lost, afraid, and alone, until she saw something in the distance. At first, she thought it was just another shadow of the storm, but then it moved. It stood tall, much taller than her people. The shape was strong, broad, and strange. The girl's heart almost stopped. A human. Humans were the monsters in her people's stories, the destroyers, the warriors from the stars. She should have run away. She should have hidden. But her fear of the storm was greater than her fear of the human. And her mother. Her mother was dying. With trembling legs, the little alien ran towards the figure. Snow crunched under her weak steps, and her voice finally broke through the storm. "Human," she cried, her voice full of tears. My mom is dying from hypothermia. Please help her." The human turned slowly. He was tall, wearing heavy armor cracked from battle. His helmet was broken, showing part of his scarred face. His eyes were tired but sharp. He looked at the small alien girl like one looks at a ghost. For a moment, he did not move. Why would an alien child cry to him for help? Humans and her kind had fought for years. Blood had been spilled on both sides. Yet here she was, shaking, begging, her small hands reaching out. The human's heart felt heavy. He could walk away. No one would blame him. She was not his kind. Her people were enemies. But when he saw her falling to her knees, snow rising around her tiny body, he remembered something. His own daughter, long gone, back on Earth. He walked closer. The girl looked up with hope and fear in her eyes. "Please," she whispered, "my mom." "She will die tonight." The human knelt down. His voice was rough, deep from the cold. "Where is she?" The girl pointed with a shaking hand toward the mountains. "There, in the cave. But monsters are there too." The man's jaw tightened. Monsters. This frozen world was full of them, but he nodded. "Show me." The girl tried to walk, but her legs gave way. Without a word, the human lifted her in his arms. She was so light, so fragile, like a bird about to break. His armor shielded her from the worst of the storm, though the cold still bit through his own skin. Step by step, he followed her directions into the storm. The snow grew deeper, the wind louder. Around them, shadows moved. The girl buried her face in his chest. "They are watching," she whispered. The human scanned the icy hills. For a moment, he saw glowing eyes in the storm. They vanished just as quickly. His grip tightened on the child. Finally, they reached the mouth of a cave. The air inside was warmer, but it carried a strange smell. Blood and something else. Danger. The human stepped inside carefully. In the corner of the cave, wrapped in a thin blanket of alien fabric, lay the mother. Her skin was pale, her breath shallow. Her eyes were closed and frost clung to her lips. "She was close to death, Mom!" the girl cried, running to her side. She shook the woman gently. "Wake up, I brought someone." "A human. He will help." The mother opened her eyes weakly. She looked at her daughter, then at the human. Fear flickered in her fading gaze. Her lips moved, but only a broken whisper came out. The human knelt down and touched her forehead. Ice cold, too cold. He knew hypothermia. He had seen it before. Without heat, she would not last another hour. He set down his pack, pulling out a small fire starter. Sparks flew, catching on broken wood he had carried. A small fire grew, lighting the cave. The girl's eyes shone with hope. But as the fire grew, the walls of the cave revealed something else. Deep scratches, claw marks fresh. The human's instincts sharpened. Something big had been here. Something dangerous. The girl noticed his eyes and hugged her mother tighter. "They come when the fire is lit," she whispered. The human looked at the cave entrance. The storm outside howled, but beneath it he heard another sound. A growl, low, hungry. He reached for his weapon. His heart pounded. The fire warmed the dying mother, but it also called the monsters. The little girl's eyes were wide with fear. The mother tried to speak, but her lips only trembled. The growl came again, closer. Heavy footsteps crunched the snow outside the cave. The shadow of something massive moved against the firelight. The human gripped his weapon tighter. The storm was not the only enemy tonight. The fire burned weakly inside the cave. Its light danced on the icy walls, making shadows look alive. The small alien girl held her mother close, trying to warm her with tiny hands. The mother's breath was slow, but at least she was still breathing. The human sat near the fire, his hand tight on his weapon. His sharp eyes stayed fixed on the entrance. The storm outside roared like an angry beast, but beneath that sound he heard it again. The growl. Low, waiting. The girl's voice broke the silence. "They are out there," she whispered. "The cold beasts. They hunt fire." The human said nothing. He only nodded. He knew it was true. He had fought on many worlds, and monsters always came when weakness showed. And tonight they were weak. He checked the fire. It was small, not enough to last the night. If it died, the mother would die too. If it grew, the beasts would come closer. The human made his choice. They could not stay here. He turned to the girl. "We move now," her eyes widened. "But the storm is safer than what waits outside this cave," he said, his voice steady. The girl looked at her mother, tears filling her eyes. "She cannot walk." The human stood and bent down, lifting the alien woman carefully. She was light, too light, like her body had already given up. He placed her across his back, securing her with straps from his armor. "Stay close to me," he told the girl. "Do not stop. No matter what you hear." The girl nodded, though her legs trembled. She grabbed his hand, small fingers holding on tightly. The human kicked snow onto the fire, killing the flame. Darkness filled the cave. The growls outside grew louder. Then they stepped into the storm. The wind hit them like a wall. Snow blinded their eyes, stinging their skin. The girl cried out, but the human pulled her close. His armor groaned under the weight of the mother and the fury of the storm, but he kept walking. Step by step, every step felt like a battle. The snow reached up to his knees. The cold dug into his bones. His breath turned to ice. Still he moved forward. Behind them a sound rose. Heavy footsteps. The beasts had followed. The girl looked back and screamed. She saw glowing eyes in the storm, many of them moving fast. Shadows with long claws and jaws that opened too wide. The human didn't look back. He just tightened his grip on the girl's hand. "Run," he said. They pushed through the storm. The human's boots slammed into the ice, each step harder than the last. The girl stumbled, but he dragged her up. His breath grew heavy. The mother on his back was dead weight, yet he refused to let her go. The growls grew closer. The beasts were hunting them in a circle, waiting for the right moment. Then the girl pointed ahead. "There, the rocks. A shelter." Through the white storm, the human saw it. A crack in a frozen cliff, small but deep enough to hide. He pushed forward, heart pounding. But one beast was faster. It leapt from the storm, a monster of fur and ice, taller than a man, with jaws that snapped like steel. The human swung his weapon, firing a blast of light. The beam cut into the creature's chest, burning it. The beast roared, falling back, but more shadows moved around them. The girl screamed again. "They are many!" The human growled deep in his chest. "Keep running." He fired again and again, light flashing in the storm. Each shot lit the monsters, their white fangs dripping, their claws scratching the ice. But for every one that fell, 2 more appeared. At last, they reached the crack in the cliff. The human pushed the girl inside first. Then he slid in, carrying the mother, just as a beast slammed its claws into the ice where he had been. The crack was narrow, but it was deep. They squeezed through until they reached a hollow space. The human set the mother down gently against the wall. She was still breathing, but barely. The girl hugged her mother, sobbing. "Please live, please." The human stood at the entrance, weapon ready. Outside, the beasts prowled, growls echoing in the storm. Their glowing eyes burned in the darkness like lanterns of death. The girl looked up at the human. "Why do you help us?" "We are enemies." The human didn't turn. His voice was low, steady. "Because no one deserves to die cold." The girl's eyes filled with tears. She had never heard words like that before. The beasts outside roared together, shaking the walls of the crack. They were waiting. Waiting for the storm to break. Waiting for hunger to drive them inside. The human's grip on his weapon tightened. He knew the truth. They were trapped. The girl whispered, "Will they leave?" The human finally turned, meeting her frightened eyes. "No, they will wait. Until morning. Or until we are dead." Silence filled the hollow space. The only sounds were the storm's howl and the mother's weak breaths. Then from deeper inside the rock another sound came. Drip, drip, drip. The human turned sharply. That was not the sound of water. It was heavier, thicker. The smell of blood filled the air. The girl's voice shook. This is not safe either." The human stepped deeper into the hollow, his weapon light cutting the dark. On the walls, fresh claw marks. Deeper, sharper than before. Then he saw it. Bones. Cracked, frozen bones of creatures piled high. This was not just a shelter, this was a feeding ground. The hollow space inside the cliff was silent. Too silent. Only the sound of dripping blood and the faint breaths of the alien mother broke the darkness. The small girl pressed against her mother's side, shaking, while her wide eyes followed the human. The man stood tall, his weapon raised, his breath turning to mist in the cold air. His boots crunched over broken bones as he moved deeper. Every step echoed like thunder in the narrow space. He had fought wars on many worlds, but here, inside this cave, he felt the eyes of something greater than any battle. The bones were not just leftovers. They were warnings. Some were cracked by teeth larger than his hands, others were clawed, sliced clean through, and all of them were dragged into this hollow place, arranged as if someone or something kept its trophies here. The girl's whisper trembled in the dark. "This is their den." The human's eyes narrowed. "Not their den," he said quietly. "One's den." As if answering him, the storm outside went quiet for a moment. The growls of the pack faded. A heavy sound followed, thump, thump, thump footsteps, but not like the others. These were heavier, slower. The ground shook with every step. The girl's small hand clutched her mother. She whispered again, her voice breaking. "It comes." The human raised his weapon toward the entrance. His body stiffened. His heart beat hard, but his mind was sharp. He had faced predators before, but this one owned the storm. A shadow filled the crack in the cliff. Massive. Wider than the passage itself. The sound of claws scraping against stone echoed like knives. Two eyes, bright like frozen fire, glared through the opening. The girl gasped. The mother opened her weak eyes as if even in her dying state. She knew the presence of death itself. The beast entered. It was taller than any creature the human had seen on this world. Its body thick with muscle and fur as white as the storm. Its jaws opened wide, showing fangs that could crush steel. Frost dripped from its mouth, every breath colder than the wind outside. The human didn't hesitate. He fired. The blast of light struck the beast's chest. It staggered but did not fall. Instead, it roared, a sound so loud the bones around them rattled and fell. The girl covered her ears, screaming. The human fired again, aiming for the beast's glowing eyes. One shot grazed it, burning a line across its face. The predator roared louder, slamming its massive claw against the wall, shaking the ground. Rocks fell from above, the narrow den groaning under the weight. The human shouted over the noise. "Stay behind me!" The girl hugged her mother, both of them pressing against the wall. The predator lunged. Its claws swiped, sharp as blades. The human rolled aside, sparks flying as the claws cut through stone. He fired again, hitting its shoulder. The beast howled, the sound echoing deep into the frozen mountains. But it was not afraid. It was angry. The human gritted his teeth. He knew he could not win in a long fight. His weapon was nearly out of power, his body heavy from carrying the mother, and the cold ate at his strength. The predator roared again and charged. The human dropped low, sliding under its swipe. He drove his combat knife into its leg. The blade cut deep, blood dark and steaming in the cold. The beast screamed, but instead of falling, it slammed its massive body against the wall. The shockwave knocked the human off his feet, sending him crashing into the bone pile. Bones cracked under him, the stench of old death rising around. The predator turned, its eyes burning with fury, its breath fogging the air. It stepped closer, claws digging into the ground. The girl cried out, "No! Leave him!" The beast roared, ready to strike the final blow. But the human was not finished. From the bones, he grabbed a broken piece of armor, alien steel from some past victim. As the predator lunged, he thrust it upward into the beast's mouth. The jagged metal stabbed into its jaw. The predator roared in rage and pain, thrashing violently. The cave shook. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Dust filled the air. The human rolled away, gasping for breath. His body ached, his hands bleeding. The predator thrashed, clawing at its mouth, but the steel stayed lodged deep. It staggered backward, crashing against the walls. Then with a final roar, it turned and stormed out of the cave, its body smashing through the crack, vanishing into the storm. Silence returned. The human dropped to his knees, breathing hard. His weapon lay smoking in his hand, nearly empty. He turned to the girl. She stared at him, eyes wide, tears frozen on her cheeks. You heard it," she whispered. The human wiped blood from his mouth. "Not enough," he said grimly. "It will return." The girl's voice shook. "Then what do we do?" The human glanced at the mother. She was still alive, but her time was short. He looked at the girl, then at the storm outside. "We move, before it comes back." But as he stepped toward the entrance, his ears caught something. The growls of the pack had returned, many voices, louder, closer. The human's heart sank. The predator had not fled. It had called for help. And now, in the storm, dozens of glowing eyes appeared surrounding the cave. The little girl's voice cracked with terror. "They are everywhere." The human raised his weapon one more time. His voice was steady, but inside he knew the truth. The real fight was just beginning. The cave was shaking with growls. Dozens of glowing eyes burned through the storm outside, waiting. The pack had come, and they were hungry. The little alien girl held her weak mother tightly, her small body trembling. The human stood in front of them, weapon raised. His breath was heavy, his body cold and wounded, but his eyes stayed sharp. He knew the truth. His weapon was nearly empty. The storm outside was death, and the monsters inside were worse. Still, he did not step back. The girl's voice broke the silence. "We cannot fight them all. They will kill us." The human looked at her, then at the mother, who was barely alive. He did not answer right away. Instead, he pulled something from his pack, small sticks of fuel wrapped in cloth. He placed them near the center of the cave. "Fire," he said simply. The girl blinked in confusion. "But fire? Fire will call them closer." The human lit the fuel. Flames rose, brighter than before, filling the hollow space with light. The heat spread quickly, pushing the cold back. The mother's pale face softened as warmth touched her skin. She breathed a little deeper, her chest rising weakly. The girl looked at the human, confused. Why give your fire to us? You need it too." The man's eyes stayed on the flames. His voice was low, heavy. "Because no one deserves to die cold, not even my enemy." The girl stared at him, her heart thumping fast. These were not the words of a monster. These were the words of someone who carried light inside, even in endless darkness. Outside, the pack roared louder. Their shadows moved against the cave walls. Claws scraped the stone. The beasts were circling, ready to rush inside. The human adjusted his weapon and checked his knife. He knew this fight could not be won with bullets. Fire was the only hope. Fire was life. He gathered broken bones from the den, throwing them into the flames. The fire grew higher, brighter, spreading warmth. The beasts hated it, but they also hated hunger more. The girl whispered, "They will attack soon." The human nodded. "Yes, but we will not make it easy." The storm outside screamed as if the world itself wanted them gone. The beasts answered with howls that shook the mountains. Then finally they came. The first monster leapt into the cave, its claws flashing. The human met it with fire, grabbing a burning bone from the flames, swinging it like a weapon. The creature screeched, its fur catching light, and it stumbled back, roaring in pain. Another rushed in. The human fired his weapon, the last blast cutting across its chest. It fell, thrashing, but more replaced it. Their glowing eyes burned with madness. The girl screamed, covering her mother with her small body. The beast swarmed closer, jaws snapping. The firelight made them furious. The human fought like a man possessed. Every move was sharp, every strike filled with strength. He burned them, cut them, pushed them back. His arms shook, his body bled, but still he stood. One monster broke through, its jaws snapping toward the girl. She screamed, but the human moved faster, shoving the beast back with his burning torch. "Stay with your mother," he shouted. The girl clung to her mother, tears streaming. She watched as the human stood alone, fighting a sea of shadows. The cave walls cracked under the weight of claws and fury. The ceiling shook, dust falling like snow. The storm outside grew stronger, as if nature itself wanted to crush everything inside. The human's fire burned bright, but fuel was running low. He knew the truth. When the fire died, so would they. He glanced at the girl one last time. Her eyes were wide with fear, but also with trust. She believed in him. The human made his choice. He tore the last pieces of cloth from his armor, soaked them in fuel, and threw them into the flames. Then he stepped closer, almost into the fire itself. His armor smoked, his skin burned, but he didn't move back. The beast hesitated. The flames grew tall, wild, powerful. For the first time, the monster stepped back. The girl gasped, You are becoming the fire." The human's face was hard, his voice steady. "If this is the last heat I give, let it be enough." The fire painted his figure like a warrior of light. His shadow grew tall across the icy walls, and for a moment even the monsters looked afraid. But the cave trembled again. The weight of the storm, the battle, and the fire's fury weakened the stone. Cracks spread across the ceiling. Rocks began to fall. The girl screamed, "The cave, it's collapsing!" The human's eyes shot to the entrance. The storm outside raged, but it was the only way left. He lifted the mother onto his back once more. His legs shook, his wounds bled, but he stood tall. He grabbed the girl's hand tightly. "Run," he ordered. The girl looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. "But the beast, they fear the fire," he said, his voice like steel. "And as long as I carry it, they will not take us." Behind them, the flames roared. Around them, the monsters howled. Above them, the cave ceiling cracked open. The human stepped into the storm, carrying both mother and daughter, his body glowing with firelight. The pack followed, dozens of glowing eyes chasing through the snow. But the human did not stop. The last heat of his body, the last fire of his soul, burned brighter than the endless night. The storm screamed as if the world itself wanted to swallow them whole. Snow whipped across the frozen ground, biting into skin like knives. The human carried the alien mother on his back, her fragile body burning cold against him. With his other hand he held the little girl tightly, pulling her through the endless white. Behind them, glowing eyes followed. The pack of beasts circled in the storm, their growls rising and falling like drums of death. Yet they did not strike, not yet. They were waiting for the human's fire to die. The girl looked up at the human. His face was pale, lips cracked, breath heavy. Steam rose from his armor where the flames had burned him earlier. He was fading, but still he moved forward step by step. "Where are we going?" she cried above the storm. The human's eyes narrowed. Through the blizzard he saw faint lights flickering in the distance. They were not natural lights. They were torches. Or campfires, hope, or danger. "To safety," he said simply. The girl squinted at the lights. Her small body trembled. "That is not your camp. That is my people." The human said nothing. His boots slammed into the ice, carrying them forward. The mother groaned weakly on his back, still clinging to life. The closer they came, the more the girl shook. "You cannot go there," she whispered. "They will kill you. They think humans are demons." The man's jaw tightened, but he didn't stop. "I don't care what they think," he said. "Your mother needs more than my fire. She needs your people." The girl's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe her people would listen. But deep in her heart, she knew the truth. Her people hated humans more than they feared the beasts. At last, they reached the edge of the camp. Tall figures appeared through the storm, armored in strange alien steel. Their weapons glowed faintly, pointed forward. "Stop!" one shouted in their own tongue. The girl stepped in front of the human quickly, spreading her arms wide. "No, do not shoot." "He saved us." The soldiers hesitated. Their glowing eyes flicked between the child, her dying mother, and the tall human behind them. Murmurs rose. One soldier, taller than the rest, stepped forward. His voice was sharp, angry. "Why does she travel with a human? Why is our queen carried on his back?" The girl cried out, "He saved her! He fought the cold beasts! Without him, she would already be dead." The soldier's eyes narrowed. He pointed his weapon at the human. "No, this is a trick. Humans kill to conquer. He carries her as a prisoner, not a savior." The human said nothing. His chest rose and fell heavily, his weapon lowered at his side. He was too tired to argue. He only shifted the weight of the mother gently on his back, keeping her alive. The soldiers surrounded them, weapons aimed. The girl screamed, "No! He gave us fire. He gave us life." Her voice echoed through the storm. For a moment, the soldiers hesitated. The human could see doubt in their glowing eyes. But doubt was not enough. The tall soldier snarled, raising his weapon higher. "Enough lies, child. Humans are poison. We will take the queen, and then we will end him." The girl's heart broke. She stepped in front of the human again, her tiny body shaking but brave. "You cannot. I will not let you hurt him," the soldier growled. "Move aside." And then the storm itself exploded. From the white fury came a roar louder than thunder. The ground shook as something massive approached. The soldiers turned, weapons raised. The little girl's eyes widened in terror. The predator had returned. The same beast the human had wounded, larger and angrier than before. Its glowing eyes blazed like fire. Blood still dripped from its jaw where the human had stabbed it, but its fury was stronger than its wounds. It roared again, shaking the camp. The alien soldiers opened fire, beams of light cutting through the snow. The beast charged, smashing soldiers aside with claws the size of swords. Chaos exploded. Screams, gunfire, blood, and snow all mixed in the storm. The soldiers fought bravely, but the predator tore through them like paper. The girl clung to her mother, screaming. The human stood tall, his weapon trembling in his bloody hand. He should have run. He should have saved himself. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with the very soldiers who had just threatened to kill him. He raised his weapon, firing at the beast's burning eyes. The predator roared, turning toward him with fury. The soldiers gasped as they saw the human fight for them, not against them. The little girl cried, "Please, believe me now. He is not our enemy." The predator swung its claw. The human dodged barely, the strike cutting through ice where he stood. He slashed his knife into its leg again. Blood sprang across the snow. The beast howled in rage. The soldiers fired together now, their blasts lighting the storm. The human's voice roared above it all. "Hold the line." For one moment, enemies fought as one, but then, with a furious swipe, the predator smashed through the defenses. The human was thrown to the ground, his weapon flying into the snow. His chest heaved, his strength fading. The girl screamed. The predator loomed over him, its jaws opening wide for the killing bite. The soldiers shouted, but they were too far. The girl sobbed, covering her mother's face. And then, silence. The predator's jaws froze an inch above the human's throat. Its glowing eyes flickered, confused. Its massive body shook. Behind it, the alien queen, the dying mother, was on her knees. Her weak hand held a glowing shard of alien energy, stabbed deep into the predator's back. The beast roared, spinning in fury, throwing the queen aside like a rag doll. But her strike had wounded it badly. Blood poured from the wound, dark and steaming. The human crawled forward, grabbing his knife. He leapt, driving it deep into the beast's neck. The predator screamed, its roar shaking the mountains. Snow fell from the cliffs above. The earth itself cracked. The predator collapsed, shaking the ground, its glowing eyes fading into darkness. Silence returned once again. The soldiers stared in shock. The girl ran to her mother, crying. The human stood, blood dripping from his hands, his breath heavy. But then the queen's weak voice whispered through the storm. "Human, why save us?" The man's voice was tired but steady, because even enemies deserve a chance to live. The girl held her mother, tears falling. But as she looked up, she saw the soldiers raising their weapons again, this time at the human. Snow drifted down over the battlefield, painting red blood into white silence. The predator's massive body lay still, steam rising from its wounds. Around it, broken weapons and shattered armor marked the chaos of the fight. The human stood tall but weak, his hands covered in blood, his chest rising and falling like a broken machine. His weapon was gone, his knife cracked, and his body screamed with pain. Still, his eyes were sharp, burning with the fire of survival. The little alien girl knelt beside her mother, the queen, crying softly. The queen's face was pale, her breath thin, but she was alive. The alien soldiers surrounded them, weapons glowing. Their leader, tall and armored, stepped forward. His voice was harsh. "The beast is dead, but so should he be." He pointed at the human. The girl jumped up, standing in front of the man, her small arms spread wide, blocking the soldier's aim. "No, you cannot! He saved us! He saved all of us!" The soldiers muttered among themselves. Some looked uncertain, their eyes flicking between the child and the human. They had seen him fight at their side. They had seen him bleed for the queen. But their hate for his kind ran deep. The leader growled, "Do not be fooled by tricks, child. Humans fight only for themselves." The girl shook her head fiercely. Her voice cracked but carried through the storm. "No, he gave his fire to us. He carried my mother when she was dying. He could have left us, but he did not. He is no monster. The leader's weapon glowed brighter. "Step aside," the girl's heart pounded. She knew if she stayed, they might shoot her too. But she did not move. The human's voice cut through the silence. It was low, steady, even though he was near collapse. "Let her go. If you want blood, take mine. But leave the child." The girl turned, her eyes wide. "No, don't say that." The human looked at her gently, almost like a father. "I told you. No one deserves to die cold. Not even me." The soldiers shifted uneasily. The storm howled around them, but no one fired. For a long moment, it was only silence broken by the weak breath of the queen. Then her voice rose. Soft, fragile, but filled with authority. "Enough." The soldiers froze. The queen's eyes opened slowly. She leaned on her daughter, her body trembling, but her words carried power. "I saw him fight. I felt his fire. Without him, I would already be dead. Without him, you would all be dead." The leader turned, his voice sharp. "My queen, he is human. Their kind destroyed our worlds." Her weak hand lifted, silencing him. "And yet, he saved mine." The girl hugged her mother tightly, tears running down her face. The queen's eyes moved to the human. For a moment, their gazes locked, enemy to enemy, life to life. "You fought not for victory, but for mercy." "Why?" The man's breath steamed in the cold. His voice was rough but honest. "Because war takes everything. I know what it is to lose. I would not let a child lose her mother to the cold." The queen was silent for a long time. Then she nodded weakly. "Then tonight mercy wins." The soldiers lowered their weapons slowly, but their leader still frowned. "If we let him live, the council will not forgive this. They will call it betrayal." The queen's voice hardened. "Then let them call it what they wish. But remember, when the beast came, it was a human who stood with us, not against us." The soldiers bowed their heads reluctantly. The girl looked up at the human, her face glowing with relief. "You are safe." But the human did not smile. His eyes stayed on the horizon. The storm had quieted, but danger was not gone. His instincts told him this was only the beginning. The soldiers carried the queen toward their camp. The girl walked beside her, never letting go of her hand. The human followed at a distance, his body aching with every step. When they entered the camp, alien eyes turned from every corner. Soldiers, healers, even children stared in shock. Whispers spread like fire. A human had entered their home. The queen was placed inside a tent of warmth and light. The healers rushed to her side. The girl stayed close, watching, her eyes always darting to the human outside. But outside, the soldiers were already gathering. The leader stepped forward again, his voice hard. "He may have saved us, but he cannot stay. The council will demand his trial." The human stood silent, his jaw tight. He knew what was coming. He had seen it before on other worlds. Mercy in battle, chains afterward. The girl rushed out, grabbing the soldier's arm. "No, you cannot!" "He is our friend." The soldier shook his head. "This is bigger than you, child. His fate is not yours to decide." The human placed a hand on the girl's shoulder, steady and calm. "It's all right. Let them do what they must," her eyes filled with tears. "But they will hurt you." He looked at her gently. "Then let them try." "I've faced worse." The soldiers closed in. Their chains glowed with cold light, ready to bind him. The human didn't resist. He only raised his hands slowly, his face calm, though his heart beat heavy. As the chains wrapped around his arms, the storm outside rose again, as if the world itself was warning them. The trial of mercy had begun. The human sat in chains. The metal was cold, biting into his burned skin. Around him, the alien camp whispered like a hive of angry insects. Soldiers stood tall with weapons in hand, their eyes sharp and filled with hate. Children hid behind tents, peeking at the figure they had been taught to fear their whole lives. The little alien girl pushed against the guards, tears running down her cheeks. "Let him go. He is not a monster," she cried. But the guards did not move. The human's head was bowed. His breath came slow, every inhale heavy with pain. His body was broken, his strength nearly gone, but his eyes still glowed with the fire that had carried him through the storm. The council of elders stepped forward. Tall, robed and cold as the ice outside, they stood in judgment. The leader raised his voice deep and harsh. "This human trespassed our lands. He carries the blood of our enemies. His kind burned our homes, destroyed our cities, and filled our graves. Mercy cannot erase history. Mercy cannot erase war." The crowd murmured in agreement. Weapons clanged against the ground. The little girl clutched her mother's hand. The queen, the alien mother, stood weakly beside her daughter. Her body still trembled from sickness, but her voice was strong. Without him, I would not stand before you now. Without him, your camp would already be gone. He fought the predator when all others fell. He carried me when death was near. He gave his fire to us when we had none. The leader's eyes narrowed. He did this. For what? For peace? Or for power? Humans never give without reason. The girl shouted, her small voice breaking through the noise. He gave because he cared. He gave because he could not watch us die. The human lifted his head slowly. His voice was low, steady, carrying across the camp. I fought because I will not let the cold take another life. I buried my daughter in snow once. I will never forget. When I saw this child, I saw her face. I could not walk away. The crowd fell silent. Even the storm outside seemed to pause. The queen looked at the human with deep eyes. You carried fire not in your hands, but in your heart. You burned against the night, not to conquer, but to protect. That is what makes you more than enemy. It makes you something greater. The council leader spat on the ground. Beautiful words. But words do not change blood. What happens when others see him here? What happens when the humans return for him? The human met his gaze, unflinching. Then let them come. I have nothing left but this fire. And if I must, I will burn it until the last breath leaves me. The girl rushed forward, wrapping her small arms around the human's leg. Please, do not take him away. He is our hero. The crowd stirred. Soldiers who once looked at him with hate now looked uncertain. They had seen his battle with their own eyes. They had seen him bleed for their queen. The queen lifted her hand weakly. Enough. Tonight we decide not with chains but with truth. She stepped closer to the human, her voice trembling but firm. You gave your fire to us. Now I give mine to you. Slowly she knelt before him, the queen of a people bowing to the man who had been her enemy. Gasps spread through the camp. The girl cried out in joy, hugging her mother tightly. The council leader's face twisted with anger. But even he could not fight what he had seen. He lowered his weapon. One by one the soldiers followed, their glowing blades dimming. The human's chains were unlocked. He fell forward, weak from pain, but the queen caught his arm, steadying him. Her voice was soft but filled with strength. You are no prisoner here. You are a protector. The girl's eyes shone with tears and joy. You are family now. For the first time in many years, the human allowed a small smile. The storm outside broke. The wind grew quiet, and the stars shone above the frozen world. The fire at the center of the camp burned high, its glow lighting the faces of humans' old enemies who now saw him in a new light. The queen raised her hand toward the flames. Let this fire remind us, not all enemies are monsters. Sometimes, even in the coldest dark, there is warmth. The human stood beside her, silent, staring at the fire. He knew he could never return to Earth. He knew war might still come. But for the first time in a long time, he felt something he thought he had lost. Belonging. The girl squeezed his hand tightly. You saved us. One day I will tell everyone your story. The human looked down at her, his voice quiet, almost like a whisper. Then tell them this. Humans are not just flesh and blood. We are fire, and fire never dies. The flames roared higher, as if the world itself agreed. The human, the queen, and the child stood together by the fire, no longer enemies, but survivors. The storm had taken much, but it could not take this. The legacy of fire had begun.